Hey, how's it going everyone? I'm Martin and welcome back. So in today's video I'm here to cover the rest of the information that has come out from various different interviews from E3 that I haven't been able to cover in videos so far. I've already covered some of the information and some of the highlights in my previous video, so I'd recommend checking that one out first if you haven't already. But just to recap that video here real quick, I talked about the new Flashpoint activity, which are essentially featured locations. Each week one location in Destiny 2 is going to be picked to have special monsters spawn, treasure maps to follow, special events, and even rewarding Nightfall tier rewards. I also talked about the fact that the Ward of Dawn is going to be returning for Sentinel Titans as part of one of these subclasses skill trees, exotic quest lines, and how there's going to be more of them in Destiny 2, and a few other details. So this video is kind of a follow-up to that, going over the rest of the information that has come out. So the big thing I want to start this video off with comes from a question from an interview with Luke Smith from Kotaku, and that is, what is the darkness? When asked about this, Luke admitted that Bungie honestly just didn't even have an answer. They didn't know what the darkness was at one point. They just didn't know. Now, just to clarify something, I see a lot of people mistake the darkness as another way to reference the enemies of Destiny, so the Fallen, Hive, Vex, and Cabal, but that is not what the darkness is. The darkness is something completely separate. In trailers and cutscenes, the darkness has been depicted as this sort of deep black force that consumes all matter and light, but we don't actually know if it has any sort of physical form. Others have interpreted it as this sort of evil that can possess and have negative influence on things, but really we've never actually known what the darkness is itself, and it appears Bungie doesn't either, or at least they didn't at one point. The closest race to the darkness are the Hive, as they essentially worship it, and Oryx actually draws his powers from the darkness itself, as seen in the first cutscene of the Taken King when he thrusts his sword into his ship, the Dreadnought, and sends out a blast that wipes out the entire Awoken fleet. So for now, whilst Bungie focus on Destiny 2's story, which is about Gaul, what it means to be a Guardian, and exploring the light, they're removing the darkness and any unnecessary terminology associated with the darkness. Even when you die now in Destiny 2, it no longer says the darkness consumed you, it says your light fades away. This doesn't mean the darkness is going to be completely forgotten about, don't worry. For now, Bungie just wants to remove any details that weren't important to Destiny 2's story. The darkness will return once we're ready to face it, and it seems Bungie already have some ideas in the works. To finish off this question, Luke Smith said, "Because when we're going to talk about the darkness next, we need to know what it is and have a plan for it." And we do. It does all seem a bit weird though, coming out now that Bungie didn't actually know what the darkness is, considering it's supposed to be a big part of Destiny's lore, and I mean, it's the whole reason the collapse even occurred, and why we're now in the state that we're in, trying to essentially survive in the last city. Anyway, moving on, just a couple more details from the Kotaku interview with Luke Smith. He mentioned that there is no guided games for hard mode activities. Guided games is only going to be available for normal mode activities, so normal nightfalls, normal raids, but if you want to do hard mode, you're going to still have to pull your own team together for that. Now, I can kind of already see why this is going to cause some problems for people, because once hard mode is released for the raid, no one's really going to be too fussed about the normal mode, no one's going to really play it anymore a couple months down the line, because hard mode is, you know, where you get all the best gear from. So in a way, it kind of makes guided games redundant after a while, and will only just be useful for people who want to do normal mode. I'm guessing Bungie's idea behind this, their thought process, is that maybe if somebody can have a good time in the guided games for normal mode, maybe they can make some friends that way and pull a team together from there, and then take on hard mode together, as opposed to just some random people meeting for the first time and jumping straight into the hard mode. And then lastly, from the Kotaku interview, there is going to be no ranked playlist, or at least at launch. And this is a pretty big deal to a lot of people, including myself a little bit. One of the biggest complaints about Destiny's PvP is that it became too quote-unquote sweaty, and all the best players just got matched with the not-so-skilled players, and there was no real way to actually divide them. And so people who just wanted to chill out and have fun in the Crucible couldn't do that because of no ranked play, and was really kind of hoping for ranked play in Destiny 2. Now, he didn't outright say there's going to be no ranked play at all ever in Destiny 2, but they don't have anything for launch, at least as of right now. Luke Smith said that they have some ideas of what they want to do, but they don't want to commit to it just yet because they don't want to delve into any details and then turns out it's not happening. So there's still always kind of a chance at some point in the future of Destiny 2, but at launch, sadly, there is not. Anyway, moving on to the next batch of information now. This comes from the IGN Fireteam chat, and thanks to Bungie Informer on Twitter, he did a great job at summarising a lot of this information. Go follow him, he's a great source of Destiny 2 news. So we have a few bullet points here. Firstly, the Destiny 2 motion tracker has a set distance at which it picks up enemies. It's not uncapped like in Destiny 1. Now, I for one am actually really pleased with this. It's one of the big complaints I kind of had about the Crucible. I didn't like how far somebody could be picked up on the radar. You could literally spawn into a map and the enemy would see you from the other side just by looking at the radar. And I really didn't like that at all because there was just no way to actually sort of flank people. And you know, if you set up in the middle of a room, say the Cauldron, you could just watch every door because your radar covered nearly the entire map. So there was no real way to flank or anything like that. And the distance was just ridiculous to me. I much preferred Halo Reaches and Halo 3's mini-maps where they had a distance of, I believe, 25 meters, correct me if I'm wrong. It was something like that. So you had to be somewhat close to someone to see them on your radar. You couldn't just detect them from halfway across the map like you can in Destiny. And now that they mentioned this in the interview, I did actually kind of notice it thinking back to the Destiny 2 reveal when I was playing Crucible. I felt like I could actually get around the map, and there was even times where I was like, where's the action? Because I just couldn't see anything on my radar. So that I'm actually really happy about. Next point, crouching enemies will still pulse on the motion tracker like in Destiny 1, but the pulse will be slower / less frequent. So again, this is another good change for the radar because there was kind of really no point in crouching in the Crucible. I mean, obviously to hide behind cover and stuff, but it never actually really hid you off the radar. So I'm glad that the pulses are going to be less frequent now. Again, it's more like Halo, where, except in Halo, when you crouched, you went completely off the radar. Next up, time to kill in Destiny 2 is intentionally designed to be a bit longer as a net result of small changes. Again, another change that I think is going to be good for the Crucible. I know some people may disagree with me on that, some people may argue that it just makes gameplay much slower and more boring, but in case you couldn't tell, I used to play a lot of Halo years ago, so I much prefer that style of gameplay where kill times are slower and you actually have a chance of fighting back. Whereas there have been times in Destiny, especially as Year 2 and Year 3 progressed, I feel like more and more often I would be playing and there'll be times where I just died in a split second and have no idea what hit me. When hand cannons were at their peak, you could get a crispy 3-tap and there'll be no way to counter it. It was just that ridiculous sometimes. So I'm glad that the kill time is going to be a bit longer in Destiny 2. Next point, in Destiny 2, there'll be visual ways in your character screen that will let other players know you are a veteran player from Destiny 1. Now, they don't say exactly what they mean by this. I'm assuming it's just going to be something like an emblem or something like that to show off, but it would be cool if there was something else as well. Maybe something that was actually on your character or displayed next to your name in-game. But most likely it'll just be an emblem or some kind of other veteran reward. Next up, now this was not outright stated, but it sounds like vendors in Destiny 2 won't have weapons to sell, and instead you'll just get weapons from reputation packages. Again, this is not outright stated, so it's nothing confirmed, but it's a possibility. And if this is the case, it means that we won't actually be able to just buy fixed roles anymore. We'll just have to depend on RNG and hope that the weapons we get from packages actually turn out to be good. So that's going to be interesting. I'm not going to complain about it now. I'm going to wait and see and wait for more information, and also hope that the weapons in Destiny 2 are a lot more, I guess, balanced or better. I know some people might be upset by this because if it turns out that this is the case, then not everyone will be able to buy the same role, and this could cause trouble for balancing in PvP. And then lastly, from the Fireteam chat, everyone goes through the same story regardless of class in Destiny 2. there is not a unique starting place depending on class choice. So I'm guessing what this means by this is that there aren't going to be any sort of unique storylines for each class, because as we know in Destiny 2, the Vanguard has been disbanded and we need to go to different worlds and pull everyone back together. So we have to go to Titan for Zavala, we have to go to Aya for Ikora, and Nessus for Cade. So every player is going to have to go through that same story of pulling everyone back together. It's not like Hunters have to go find Cade, Titans have to go find Zavala, and Walks have to go find Ikora. Everyone has the same story. So that is all the information from the IGN Fireteam chat, but we have a few last details here that are coming from an article from PC Gamer. So I'm not going to go over every single question in this article just because some of them are a bit unnecessary or don't really have proper answers, but if you would like to read the full thing for yourself, there'll be a link in the description. So, first question, are the old subclasses Sunsinger, Defender and Blade Dancer gone? They're replaced by Dawnblade, Sentinel and Arcstrider. Yes, for all intents and purposes, they are gone. Then the next question, so when a hand cannon, say, drops in the wild, does it drop as kinetic or energy? Is that something I apply later? Can the exact same hand cannon drop as kinetic or energy? No, the exact hand cannon cannot drop as kinetic or energy. Basically the weapons have specific assignments. Weapon A will only ever appear as a kinetic weapon, and weapon B will only ever appear as an energy weapon. Every weapon that appears in your kinetic weapon slot is unique, and so is every weapon that appears in your energy weapon slot. And lastly from this article, is the farm vault bigger? Now, just in case anybody isn't aware by now, in Destiny 2's new social space called The Farm, there is going to be a new vault. Now, unfortunately, they didn't give any exact details, since this is actually something they're still working on. All throughout Destiny 1, vault space has always been a problem for both the player and on a technical side because of memory constraints. So I guess they're still working on figuring out how much space we're going to be able to have in our vaults based on the console specs and what Destiny itself can handle. And finally, we have one last detail that's actually from a different article. I lied, I thought that was the last one. But this one comes from Game Rant, and this is on the death penalty in raids. There is actually now going to be a new death penalty, as opposed to just being dead and not being able to join back into the action. So in the article, Luke Smith suggests, and that's the key word here, suggests, that the days of no revives are gone, potentially for both heroic and normal mode difficulty. Here's what he had to say. The raid should always be challenging you to cooperate, collaborate and communicate, but I don't want to bring the difficulty down. We had a conversation. We have a brand new death penalty in the game for raiding. I think it's pretty unfun to die and just watch on hard mode. So we have a brand new death penalty, and on the normal mode raids, people have talked about wanting to remove it because it's different, and why not just use the strike difficulty? But we don't want to change the difficulty because we believe our players are smart. We believe that motivated groups of players can take on these challenges and complete them. We've seen that. So based on what Luke Smith has said here, it sounds like now instead of just being stuck and forced to watch your teammates continue the raid without you and struggle to complete it, there now may actually be a way of coming back and re-entering the fight. But unfortunately, they didn't go into any other detail than that. They just mentioned that there's going to be a new death penalty. So that is going to be really interesting. I can't wait to find out what that is. So that is all for this video. I think I've rounded pretty much everything up, or at least all the important stuff. Also, be sure to check out some of my previous videos if you haven't already and need to catch up on the latest Destiny 2 news. As always, the support on this channel has been crazy recently. Thank you very much for that. Likes are greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for watching.